cold-hearted orb that rules the night, removes the colours from our sight. Red is grey and yellow white, but we decide which is right and which is an illusion. Pinprick holes in a colourless sky. Let insipid figures of light pass by. The mighty light of 10,000 suns challenges infinity and is soon gone. Nighttime to some, a brief interlude. To others, the fear of solitude. Brave Helios, wake up your steeds. Bring the warmth the countryside needs. Good day, folks, and welcome to the Anorak Review Show with I, your host, the Anorak. And well, here we are at the 100th episode of my review show. Or should I say, our review show? Because it's people like you watching this, among other reasons, that have encouraged me to not only continue doing what I like to do, but also try to be better at it as time goes on. And for that, I wish to thank you viewers out there. So far, I have looked at quite a bit of stuff. For my 25th episode, I looked at Emerson, Lake and Palmer's Tychus. For the 50th, I tackled A Day at the Races by Queen. And for the 75th, I covered Obscured by Clouds by Pink Floyd. So, yeah, quite a track record. But for now, though, what could possibly be the subject for the 100th episode? The 100th episode? Well, since two of those albums happen to be progressive rock, which happens to be one of my favourite music genres, in case you couldn't tell, I figured I'd take a chance to go back a step further to when I, and possibly other people as well, believe to be the true source and birth of the genre. But first, allow me to discuss a bit about the band behind it, the Moody Blues. Formed in Birmingham back in 1964, they actually started out, funny enough, as a rhythm and blues band, mostly covering American blues songs whilst making some of their own original material as well. And their 1965 debut album, The Magnificent Moodies, does seem to reflect that. However, it would prove to be something of a magnificent dud, as the album and several singles didn't have the success they were hoping for. And as a result, the band soon found itself in financial uncertainty, and even two members, guitarist Denny Lane and the late bassist Clint Warwick, left the group altogether. But soon enough, fortune would soon smile on them, as the remaining members, pianist/organist Mike Pinder, or Mike Pinder, I'm going to stick with Pinder, the late flutist Ray Thomas, and the late drummer Graham Edge, not only managed to stick around, but they also got a new bassist with John Lodge, and a new vocalist/guitarist Justin Hayward, whom many of you might recognise for singing Forever Autumn in Jeff Wayne's musical version of The War of the Worlds. The parent record company they were with at the time, Decca Records, offered the band a chance to make a new album combining both rock and classical elements for their new subsidiary label, Dirham Records, as well as to demonstrate their new Duramic sound. And so, the Moody Blues came up with the concept of a song cycle about a typical day in the life of an everyman. and it's that album we're looking at today, right now. So let's celebrate our 100th episode and its 55th anniversary by jumping into the Moody Blues 1967 album, Days of Future Past. The cover itself, illustrated by David Anstey, is both brilliant and beautiful. The pretty psychedelic colors, all in nature, while keeping with the album's day and night motif, with elements such as an hourglass, numbers ticking up to 12, and even different shapes in the moon until it becomes like a eclipse or a new moon and whatnot. And upon observing the artwork itself, one could see a kind of double face viewed from either sideways, as you might see here. I myself didn't even notice such until fairly recently while I was researching for this. And knowing that alone, it definitely enhances the dreamlike quality of the cover design and the music as a whole. But let's actually see for ourselves if the music itself doesn't indeed hold up even after 55 years. The album begins with The Day Begins, an overture of sorts for the overall piece, and already it's a fantastic start. We first hear the sound of a gong being played backwards, slowly rising from the mere silence before bursting into a full-on orchestral piece, performed by the London Festival Orchestra and conducted by Peter Knight, who would go on to orchestrate the music for the Jim Henson film The Dark Crystal. It almost sounds and feels like a musical soundtrack from an old film from around that era this album was made, or an actual piece of classical music from, say, the Baroque or Romantic periods. And being an overture, this track features a few subtle yet noticeable excerpts from several following songs to come, shifting from slow and operatic to jumpy and whimsical like a Disney film soundtrack. It all melds together quite well, in my opinion. Then we get to the Morning Glory section of this track, which consists of a spoken word monologue from Mike Pinder himself, whose voice and delivery has this kind of Orson Welles-esque vibe to it. In this tone poem, he speaks of a cold-hearted orb that rules the night. A terror that flaps in the night, perchance? As it removes the colours from our sight. So this cold orb causes blue cone monochromacy? Red is grey and yellow white, or in the case of this dress, it's so obviously blue and black. I joke some more, but this is indeed a very good poem written by none other than Graham Edge himself, definitely setting the stage and scene for the song cycle itself. Next, we have The Dawn with the first proper song in this album, Dawn is a Feeling, sung by the ever-talented Justin Hayward, starting with a brief orchestral interlude, something we'll be getting used to for a good chunk of this album. We soon hear Justin himself singing over what may possibly be a mellotron at least, about the dawn itself, how it's a feeling and a beautiful ceiling. No doubt one free of any cracks and cobwebs and the like. We're here today, no future fears, for this day will last 1,000 years, if we want it to. Well, I for one would want it to last 1,000,000 years, if not an infinity. The song definitely gives off the feeling of that you're still in bed, possibly reaching the end of a dream that you're having. Then the dawning sun rises in and streaks through the window. That fine line between sleeping and awakening. And as soon as you eventually wake up, you look around at all the things that astound you. And as you start knowing, pleasure starts flowing. I guess it really is a morning glory. After that, the morning finally comes around with another morning, as we're greeted to yet another brief orchestral interlude, this time sounding more bright and lively, with the flute, played by Ray Thomas, taking the lead. Soon enough, some of the other band members and instruments come into play. Justin's acoustic guitar, Graham's drums, and even Ray takes on the role of leading vocals here, singing about simple imagery that one might associate with a bright sunny day. Balloons flying, children sighing, and kites flying. This definitely has that childlike feeling to it, not just with its lyrics, but also the music as well. What I like about songs like this is that they seem to take the mundane nature of an everyday and make it sound rather interesting and even rather spirited and whimsical even, without sounding too mawkish or saccharine. Fishes biting, so exciting. Lunchtime sounds so inviting. Yeah, definitely exciting and inviting, having a fish bite you in the finger or something, or any body part for that matter. It then soon ends with yet another orchestral interlude that still manages to play generally the same melody. Funny enough, the band and the orchestra were apparently recorded separately, with the former doing their sessions before handing their final tapes over to Peter Knight to arrange and record the latter. Then they all were mixed together for the final result. Knowing all that alone, it still impresses me to this day how they blended together so seamlessly. And we're only starting on this, we're barely even halfway through this LP. And as we reach the end of side 1, we have ourselves a little lunch break with Peak Hour, whose intro/interlude lasts surprisingly longer than the ones before it, for about a minute and 40 seconds. And among the shifting of moods, from grand and theatrical to quick and energetic, you could hear a little reprising of Dawn is a Feeling melody, almost like a leitmotif, which is something not uncommon in classical music, or even popular music for that matter. And as the orchestra fades out, we then get to the main part of this track, with the actual song itself, very reminiscent of Beatles, Beach Boys, The Who, and The Kinks. As bassist, John Lodge leads the harmonic vocals in this one, singing about seeing it all through his window, never failing like a million bees. Well, that sounds like a nightmare Nicolas Cage would have. After having a good dream where he would punch a paganist in the face while wearing a bear costume. In the chorus, he and the other backing vocals repeat the peak hour line, essentially the noon itself. About 12 o'clock, or as we may refer to it where I'm from, as rush hour. In the second verse, he sings that minds are subject to what should be done, that time can't be won. 1 hour a day, 1 hour at night, seeing crowds of people and homes in full flight. Things you may likely see while heading off to work, during work itself, and coming home after work ends. Then the song soon slows down a bit when it reaches its Middle Lake section, as those harmonized vocals sing over that fantastic organ, taking a step back out and looking in, realizing that they may have indeed got time after all. Then the music soon speeds back up to normal for one last repeated verse and chorus before coming to a proper ending, concluding the first half of this album as well with it. This song alone is what I would like to call harmonic rock, where multiple tracks of almost each and every instrument, vocals and all, are combined together to create a complete and cohesive whole piece. Kind of like symphonic rock, but with harmonies instead of symphonies.